I would like to take this opportunity to give a very big thank you to several people. David and the other David, Gilbert and Joseph, and all those people in a production process. Since today is a special day, it's the second day of month of Nisan, and today we begin our second year of a recording this shiurim. David told me yesterday that it's a tremendous amount of views for those lectures. He pointed out, if I'm not mistaken, about 27,000 views in 1 year over Word of Torah, and the whole involvement of this with all these people. So I want to express my very, very deep gratitude. May Hashem bless you. And here we are on page 6 in Tractate Eruvin. This page is the page that continue with the discussion over alleyway, but we bring a different scenario to make this alleyway available in a sense of level of kashrut. So we go now to page 6, but the first is the last line on page 5b. אמר רב חנין ברב אמר רב מבוי שנפרץ מצידו ב10 מראשו ב4. Here we have this alleyway, and Rashi explained שהיה מבוי רחב 20 אמה וסתמו ונפרצה פרצה באותה סתימה. So this is the alleyway. This is the side of the מבוי, and you see in the ארבע טפחים it was broke. So it's already an issue because the whole concept of the entrance was broke, since is this in between. So here he speaks about the size of 4 handbreadth make it invalid, and therefore you cannot carry in this alleyway. So the GEMARA asks, Mishna mitzido ב10 דאמר פיתחהו מראשו נמי פיתחהו. So they said, why we said that we just speak about the side part. If it happens on its front, it is the same thing. It's also considering an entrance. אמר רב הונא ברי דרב יהושע כגון שנפרץ בקרן זווית. So now the pitcha בקרן זווית לא עבדי אינשי. Okay, so here he explained that the keren zavit, which is the corner. Gilbert, did they see it clearly in that picture? Okay, thank you. So this corner of the keren zavit, it's open in a size of 4 tfachim. So now it's not just a breaching in this size, it's breaching in both sides at this corner. So what's the issue here? Rashba, Ritva, and others explain that the minute they breaching the corner, people usually do not make an entrance from a corner. People usually want to enter from the regular enterway, and therefore, since they don't use that entrance, it's a make it a issue of invalid. So now, in general, there is a long discussions between all these Rishonim in regard to the entrance in that place. For example, Ritva said the whole issue is to do it in a keren zavit, in that corner. But if you don't do it in that corner, he said it's fine. The Meiri, for example, said that the whole issue is arba'at fachim, 4 handbreadth. But he said if it's not in that size, it's not considering an entrance. So here, Rav Huna disagree with that. And Rav Huna said, ורב הונא אמר אחד זה ואחד זה בארבעה. So Rav Huna said that it's no different. He said regardless if it's this one, or when you're speaking here about 4 tfachim, that it's broke here, regardless, it's the size is 4. So Tosfot explain that even according to Rav Huna, that this type of measurement of 4 handbreadth, it's only applied to the corner. The reason is because usually people do not use a corner to make it an entrance. But otherwise, it's not an issue, and the whole involvement with that corner, it's a big discussion, because what's the mindset? The mindset is, since you are using it to enter, that has to be a recognition of entrance. It has to be the heker mavoi, meaning you need to see it. What do you make? Let's trace to make sure that we all understand it clearly. We have a private domain. We have a public domain. We need to make some sign. We explain that according to Beit Hillel, it can be either crow's beam, or we have like a lechi, something on the side. The issue here is, as much as you like the crow's beam to recognize that this is a private domain, this is the public domain, even you have this crow's beam, but still, if people look at this part make it in a different status. It's a really a breach in a size of 4 handbreadths. It's already changed the status. That's the discussion. וכן אמר לרב הונא לרב חנן בר רבא. He said the same to Rav Hanan bar Rabba. He said, "Lo tivlok ilai." You should not disagree with me. The Grav ikla le damcharia. It's the name of a place. Ve'avad uvda akvati. What did he say? He said, if it's a alleyway and they have this wall, and the wall it's broke in his corner. So the minute it's broke from his corner, he said, it's invalid. What make it invalid? The minute that is exceeded from 4 and more handbreadth. That make it invalid. So now, he asked, he said, so if that's the case, Rav hold the same as I said, and not the way that you said, that the measurement has to be 10 handbreadth, 10 amot. Amar lei, he responded to him and he said, Rav bik'a matzah vegadar bagader. It's a allegorical statement. He said that Rav found a unguarded valley and he fenced it. So, in a sense, we have a Torah, and the Torah gives us a certain commandment. The rabbis came in and they said, well, in reality, we see issues, and therefore we want to make fences around the Torah. So the minute they see a hole, they try to fill it up. I give you an example that Midrash said. If you look at you remember, Gilbert asked me about the 10 Commandments. He said that the first set of the 10 Commandments written one way, and the second one is written here and there are some changes. You remember you said that about the last commandment, you shall not covet, and the order, the second set is the wife first, etc. instead of the way that was written in the book of Shmot in Exodus. So the Midrash tells us that Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, saw the reality in a life of desert, and therefore he, with the consent of God, or with the inspiration of God, or by the instruction of God, changed the order of thou shalt not covet. So in a sense, we have here the sages that put a fence in around the mitzvot, when they realize that there is a area that people can make mistakes, is a certain area that people can make poor choices, and they put a fence. So therefore, his ruling, however, was not generally applied. It's applied on that city. This city is called Damcharia. So these people that he made this breach at reaching 400, and he said, these people, it's uneducated people, ignorant people, and they belittle the value of mitzvot. So he put the fences around the mitzvot to have them distance. So that's using the valley is just an example that someone put the fences around the valley. And he bring a proof to that. And he said, Amar Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, Kvatei de Rav Huna mistabra. It appear correct according to the word of Rav Huna. The Itmar, that he learned. Mavoi akum, Rav amar torato kemfulash, u'Shmuel amar torato kesaktum. Okay. Look at the picture. Reminds you of Florida a little bit? Okay. So you have here these houses, this development. And you have here this development. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now Rashi explained that both sides is to Reshuta Rabim. This is open to the public domain, and here it's open to a public domain. Now look carefully. People walk from here to here, and people are walking from here to here, which means that you have this in one hand alleyway, but in this area, this alleyway take turn.
Mm-hmm.
So now what's the issue? So Rav said, since they have two entrances to the public domain, we need to have a lechi. You see here the camera show? You have here a lechi at this corner. You have a lechi at this corner. And now, since it changed, it gets here akmumit, which means you get the curve, then you have to have the tzurat petach. You have to make something that make it clear that we are on this domain. That's Rav's opinion. Now, Rashi explained that in general, mavoi mefulash, what is mavoi mefulash? The minutes you have public domain here, this is a highway, for example, or main road, and this is a main road, and this is the alleyway in between. You have the two developments in both sides. So the minute you have the two developments, you need to make sure that in both sides is mefulash. It's both sides you have some sign. So you see here what they do? They put a lechi. How do you say lechi?
Lechi is post.
Post, thank you. They put the post here, and they put here a crossbeam with post in both sides. So that make it kosher.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Rav's opinion. Now, in a way, let's go a little deeper. What did the Rav meant? So, Rav meant, and that I'm just putting together the Rishonim, the rabbis. He said, for our discussion, there is no difference between this one and this one. Which means the fact that you have a curve doesn't change the status. The status is mefulash, which means since you put this here and this here is basically, it's like, it's one way, it's like continuing. And for this purpose, it's like continuing. So the curve doesn't change the status. Both are equal. Okay? Shmuel, however, said, Torato kesatum. Shmuel said, wait, we hold that as the Mavoi Satum. You know what is a Mavoi Satum? You remember? Mavoi Satum, let's refresh our memory. When we talk about Mavoi Satum, you remember the first picture? This is public domain, and this is the alleyway, and here what happened is a block, is a wall. So this is Mavoi, this is alleyway, but it's black. So back to our picture, Shmuel come and said, wait a second, let me explain to you what I think happening here. I hold that the minute you have this part here, this is, make it like a closed area. It's like black here. And therefore, I do not need anything at this corner. I imagine that this corner is like, finish that. It's like you're putting something, some black, you see my finger? That cut the two. So therefore you have one entrance and one entrance. And therefore Rashi said, you do not need to put anything at this corner. I'm considering it's all coming and going in one way. So the curve, in that sense, is like blockage here. It's not mefulash. Okay? Now, Rashi have two explanations. Rashi said, in the first one, Ve'ein tzarich be'akmimuto klum, you don't need at this corner anything. But in Lishna Achrina, in the second one, he said, you have to make a little lechi, a little post at this corner. Why? Let's think together. That's he said on behalf of his teacher. He says, what are you saying? You're saying that this area is closing that and make it like a blockage, like a close. So if that's close, so make something to show that it's closed. Because physically, it's not closed. Halachically, you have to make it like a close. So therefore, you have to put a post at this corner that signal that. Because one of the key points in Mavoi is to make it clear to people that this is they have a Eruv, this is the alleyway, and this Mavoi is kosher. So in order to make that, you need to put the post to signal that this area it's separate. Therefore, b'may askina. Now the Gemara go deep to that understanding of this machloket. Ileima beyoter me'eser. If you tell me that this part it's exceeded, this part it's exceeded more than 10 handbreadth, okay? So he said, Beha leima Shmuel torato kesatu. So what did Shmuel say? That we hold it, it's like a block of the Mavoi,
alleyway,
right?
alleyway, yeah.
So he said, El alav be'eser. You have to say that it's applied to the 10. V'kama Rav torato kimfulash. So Rav said that therefore we hold it the same as mefulash. Okay, everyone see it? So even Rav hold that it's the same as mefulash. Alma pirtzat mavoi mitzido be'arba'a. So if you tell me the way that Rav Hanan bar Rava said that the minutes you have this corner, it has to have 4, which means so you hold it the same as mefulash, and you say that that's applied to 10 handbreadth, and each of them they have this separate entrance, so that's makes the difference. So it means that he holds the same as Rav Huna, that all this breach in the alleyway make it invalid when it's a 4 handbreadth, and not the way that Rav Hanan bar Rava said in his name. Because what we originally said that these 4 handbreadth make it invalid. Now you see a difference. So you see here that it's not, because if you look at the corner, you see what happened at this corner. We consider that corner as either as a mefulash or satum. So in that sense, if you hold that it's mefulash, and you request a tzurat petach, like a crossbeam at that corner, so how you explain what we said earlier about the 4 handbreadth in a breaching wall? Rav Hanan bar Rava, how Rav Hanan bar Rava explained it? Shane atam de kabak eibei oba rabim. Okay, so he said, you know what's happening? He said that many people using this, because let's think about it. First of all, there may be visiting people here. Second, they may be, instead of going to all this way, they make it shortcut. Or maybe it's much interesting for people. For all kind of reasons, people use it for a large amount of people. So since it's open in both sides to a public domain, in both entrance, so anything that it's 4 and more, it's considering a mefulash. It's there are 2 ways. The Ritva hold that way. There is others, like the Levush, the Mishnah said, etc. He said, in order to make something as entrance, what does the entrance mean? You already changing the status and you make some entrance, which means it's entrance. People entering from one domain to another, it's entrance. But if, on the other hand, so many people using that, in the sense it's no longer entrance, it's already public domain. So now the Gemara asks, if you tell me that, Michlal de Ravuna Savar, so what we derive from that? That Ravuna hold that Af al Gav de lo bak eiba rabim, that even not so many people use this alleyway to go. So therefore, Mishna mid Rabbi Ami ve Rav Asi. So what's the difference between this and Rabbi Ami Rav Asi? Rabbi Ami Rav Asi, if you remember, we said yesterday that if the mavoy, if the alleyway was broken at that corner, if 4 handbreadths left, so they make that corner still available up to 10 handbreadth. Let's see if they have here the picture. Yes. Remember yesterday we discussed here and we said that if they have 4 handbreadth, so it's fine. So now we ask a question, what's the real difference between this one, this opinion that you need that corner inside the 4 handbreadth, and the point here of the 4 handbreadth at this corner? What's the real difference between the two? So they said, Hach hatam deika gidudei, acha deleika gidudei. That's important. Let me again share with you the picture. He says, over there they have Gedudei. This is the alleyway. Crow's beam, wall, breaching in a wall. But you see what happened? They have some remnants of the wall on the bottom. So Rashi said, שנשתייר מן הכותל ביסוד 3 או 4 טפחים, that on the very basic, on the foundation, you have here, you see on the bottom, 3 to 4 handbreadth, okay? And therefore, what happens? שאינה נוכל לעבור בה. How many people, when they come here and they come here, let's say if somebody come here, is he going to climb over these 4 tfachim and enter this way, or is he going this way?
Well,
obviously, everyone is going this way,
yeah.
because it's not fully broke. It is not like here that you see it up to the bottom, and you may think that someone can use this for entrance. Here you have the gidudei, you have the 3 or 4 tfachim on the ground, and therefore it makes it very inconvenient for people to use as an entrance. So he said that's exactly the case that I'm talking about. So this, since it disturbed for people to cross by, so that corner not make it invalid until it's reaching 10 handbreadth. So he said, now we going to discuss what happened when we're dealing with the public domain, and is a several issue with that Eruv, how you make it valid in when it's come to a public domain. Tanu Rabbanan, the rabbi tells us in the Braita, Keitzad me'arvin derech reshut harabim. So again, what is a derech? Is the path, but not everyone put this word. Some eliminate that word. So, what type of eruv we're talking here? We're talking about eruv chatzeirot. You remember eruv chatzeirot meaning that you take all the people that live in a development, each of them gives some food, they collected it in one place, and therefore you unite all the owners of different houses to make it as a one single domain, and therefore by participating with that bread of the Eruv, you allow each and every member of that development to use and to carry, and it's like one home. So now we ask a question: if they have a public thoroughfare, and you want to carry an Eruv, so how does one render a public domain in such a way? Rashi said, look at the picture, remind me very much places in the pictures like the Middle East, but you can see it other places. This is development, and this is also development. But this is a place that many people use to cross by. You see something similar in Europe in few places, Middle East, many. You have this situation. So now, how you make it available for people to use it? Why? Because there are several conditions to make it in that sense. Number one, Rashi said that the width has to be 16 handbreadth. Point 1. Point 2, that people in that city are 60 ribo. 60 ribo is like 600,000 people. Number 2, that is no walls, which means that it's this go to the other side. It's a long way. See it in the places, in the pictures like China, you see it in other places that a large amount of people use this area to cross by. So he asked a question, how do you make that domain available? So he answered and he said, Ose tzurat hapetach mikan, velechi vekora mikan. So what did he do? This is the same picture. He just eliminate in these pictures all the people that walking. But again, you see, that's the development in one side, that's the development in the other side, and this is the people that cross by, in between. So he requested to make tzurat petach, which means crossbeam and post in both sides. So that's make it clear that you enter to a different domain. And the other side of that, the end of that development, you put a post on the left side. So you have a lechi post in this side, you have tzurat petach on this side, and that changed the status of that domain. Okay? That's the opinion of Tanakama. Hanania Omer. Hanania quoted Beit Shammai. Hanania Omer Beit Shammai אומרים, עושה דלת מכאן ודלת מכאן, וכשהוא יוצא ונכנס נועל. Hanania said on behalf of Beit Shammai, guess what? You want basically to make sure that this domain it's now changing to a private domain. Guess what I requested you to do? You have to put doors here. And you have to put doors there. What anybody think, what's the purpose of those doors when you put it here? What's the idea?
Did he make it a private domain?
Yes, because he emphasized on the fact that each and every time you enter here, you close the doors.
So it's private. Yeah.
So that make inside this area a private domain. ובית הלל אומרים, עושה דלת מכאן ולכי או קורה מכאן. So בית הלל said, no, I don't requested you to put doors here. What I want you to do is just siman ekher, that people know that it's a private domain. So either you put a lechi, you put a post here, okay, or cross beam, can be either way. They use in this picture, Meorot use just lechi, and you go, do you see the other side? Over there you put latot, you put a doors. So in that sense, Beit Hillel are more lenient. So what we learn from that? We learn from that Braita that we're talking about real public domain. So real public domain, we know that that's forbidden by the Torah. Because the Torah talk about, in our measurement, 16 handbreadth minimum, and it need to have mefulash from one gate to another. So, or we said that it has to be shishim ribo, 600,000 people. So, like the Tosfot said that, like the Jewish people used to do in the desert, that they have this amount of people that cross from one. So, by the Torah, you cannot carry from public domain to private domain and vice versa. So they said, "Udereshut Rabim mimi arva." Okay, if you go by the Beit Shammai, that said that you have to have a doors and you lock it, so it's not a question. Why? Because the Meiri said, but because the minute you have these doors, it's already full partition, mechitzot gmurot, and that changed totally from public domain to private domain. So that's fine. However, my problem is, what is this does to change the status of that road from public domain to private domain? What this post on those dust door in the back makes the difference. Vehatanya, we learn in Tosefta Tractate Eruvin, page 7, Yater al ken amar Rabbi Yehuda. Furthermore, Rabbi Yehuda said, we just turned to page 6b, מי שהיו לו שני בתים משני צידי רשות הרבים, עושה לחי מכאן ולחי מכאן, או קורה מכאן וקורה מכאן ונושא ונותן באמצע. Let's call him Mr. Give him a name.
Rashi.
Mr. Rashi. So Mr. Rashi has a house here and another house here. Now he wants to make this his private domain. So what did he say? He said he should make a post from here and post from here. I mean either crossbeam or post. Okay? And therefore he can carry in between. Now let's think together. This is a public domain. These two are private domain. By putting this crossbeam or post, it's supposed to change the status to private domain. אמרו לו, so the sages said to him, אין מערבין רשות הרבים בכך. What are you doing? You try to take something that belongs to public, belongs to everyone, and you try to make it as your private domain. We don't play games here. It's public domain. What does that mean, public domain? Public domain means that no one owns it individually. It's by everybody. Everyone has a share with that. So therefore, you cannot take something that belongs to everyone and make it your private just by putting those posts, which is, you have to realize that this domain belongs to everyone. And it's not that you get everyone to agree, because it belongs to everyone at the first place. So that's a status that's unchangeable, and those posts will not change the status of that domain. Clear?
Mm-hmm.
Because it's a public domain. You know, people dealing with the city issues, many times the city said, we cannot help you because it's a totally public domain. So if it's a totally public domain, sometimes individual cannot do anything with that domain since it's totally public. So they said, since we hold, the sages said to him, that this is definitely public domain by the Torah, therefore we hold, meaning the sages, that all these posts and cross beams will not change their status. And because the halacha is according to the sages, which means you cannot use a public domain with this posts or cross beams. And now is the question is, how come you told me in the first Braita that you can use a door or you can use a tzurat petach? Remember that that cross beam in the cross beam or post together. How you do it? V'chi teima. And if you tell me bechach u delo me'arva, in this post or cross beam you cannot make the eruv. Habidlatot me'arva, however, you can use this door. Remember the Beit Shammai resolution, the Hanania Beit Shammai, using door to make it a eruv, right? So he said, "Ve'amar Rabba Bar Chana Amar Rabbi Yochanan." He said, "Yerushalayim, the city of Jerusalem, ilmalei daltotea nilalot balayla chayavin alea." The city of Jerusalem, they have doors, and those doors were locked at night. In some development, you know, in Florida you see it a lot, you have a gates, and the gates locked at night. Some development have a gatekeeper, some development they have something in their cars to let them in and out, right? Sometimes it's just a key. But the point is, in the city of Jerusalem, it was those doors that were locked at night. So therefore, if someone carried inside on Shabbat, so if it was unintentional, you need to bring a sin offering. If it's a intentional, So it's all this skila. Why? Because mishum reshut harabim. Because it's considering a public domain. Because according to our sources, before the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash, Jerusalem was it was a main road that used for people, for public domain, and this length was 16 handbreadth, yes, and it was mefulash, it was from one gate to another, and according to the sources it was 600,000 people that used to cross from one domain to another. That's what Rashi said. However, since those gates were locked at night, so you cannot hold it as a public domain in a sense of a halachic entities to say that he is deserve punishment if he violated this Torah law, because it's not really a public domain, the same as the Jewish people have in a desert. In a desert it was all the time open. You have to say the most that is like a Kərməlית, that the whole idea of Kərməlית, the rabbis forbade to carry in a Kərməlית. So it's like a yard that belongs to many people. So as long as you don't make Eruv Chatzerot, that everyone bring their food and collect it together, so it's considering a public yard. But again, it's rabbinic. Ve'amar Ula, and Ula said to them, Ahanei Abulei Dimchoza. It was a city called Mechoza in Babylon. So those in that city, the streets goes from gate to gate. Ilmalei daltotehen nin'alot, if the doors in the city were not closed, חייבים עליהם משום רשות הרבים. You are obligated the same as a public domain. So it's not enough, what you learn from that it's not enough to put a post or to put a cross beam. You have to put doors that lock. Here is the picture. Elaborate. You see what happened in that city of Nahara? They have this development. You have the cross beam, but you see those doors were unlocked. These two pieces show us that it's not locked. So the minute it's not locked, it's open, and the condition is that you can lock those doors. So he said, Amar Rav Yehuda, Ache ke'amar. That's the way it should be. That's what he meant. כיצד מערבין מבואות המפולשים לרשות הרבים? How do you make this מבוי מפולש to a public domain? So he said, עושה צורת הפתח מכאן ולחי וקורה מכאן. You make צורת הפתח in one area and lechi or kora the other area. Let's see an example. This is Tzurat HaPetach, crossbeam and two posts, and lechi and this post or crossbeam on the other side. Itmar, Rav Amar Hilcheta Ketana Kama, Ushmuel Amar Halacha Kechananya. So we learn in the Braita that Rav said the halacha is according to the first Tana, that you have to make a tzurat petach, a cross beam in one side and lechi in the other. And Shmuel said that the halacha is according to Hanania who follow Beit Hillel, that he make a door in one side and lechi or korah the other side. So now he said, Iba'elehu lachanania aliba de Beit Hillel tzarich linol or אינו צריך לנעול. So according to Hanania, do you need to lock those doors? Because what we said, he said, Hanania hold that you need to have in one spot a door, and once the other one you have to put a lechi. Doors and lechi, that's the Beit Hillel. So, do you need to lock those doors every time you enter from that domain, or you don't? So, since Beit Shammai hold that you need to have two doors that are fully locked, so the big question is if Beit Hillel disagree of the amount of doors, that they hold that it's enough one door, but they said that door need to be locked or not. Or they said, since Beit Hillel doesn't use the word lock, meaning that they disagree with Beit Shammai even in regard to locking the door. So according to Beit Hillel, you do not need to lock, you see here, those doors. That's the question. Tashma. דאמר רב יהודה אמר שמואל, אינו צריך ללוד. Rav Yehuda, a name of Shmuel, said, no, you don't need to lock those doors. וכן אמר רב מתנה אמר שמואל, אינו צריך לנעול, he doesn't need to lock those doors. איכא דאמרי, another option, אמר רב מתנה, בדידיה ועובדה, ואמר לי שמואל, אין צריך לנעול. So he said, I have a situation like that. I come to Shmuel and he said, those doors you don't need to lock. באו מיני מרבנן. צריך לנעול או צריך לנעול, או אינו צריך לנעול. Rabbanan, according to our sources, was one of the giant scholars, and they asked him, do you need to lock those doors or not? Amar lehu, tachazi, come and see, or there are some said chazu, like come and see by many, hane abule denahar dea, de taiman ad palgayu be'afra, ve'ayl ve'nafik mar Shmuel v'lo amar lanu meidei. You see this, as we said in the Hardea, you have these two, they coming up in the ground, and he crossed, and no one said that you need to lock those doors. And Shmuel was the head leader at that time. He didn't, Mar Shmuel is like a well-recognized name. He didn't say anything. Hanach, Amar Rav Kahana, Hanach, Megufot Havai. They said, wait, you know what is that? This is those two. Rashi said, Lo kulan hayu ptuchot, ela sgurot uptuchot במקצת. You see those doors? Sometimes they lock, sometimes they open. It was not always permanently either way. So in other words, those doors of Na'arda, since they are not fully opened, it's just sometimes, and because they are like a little curvy, those doors, and they close partially that entrance, which means it's not fully closed, it's just partially closed. So therefore, Shmuel didn't bother to ask them all the time to close those doors. So you cannot prove from that to a fully open doors that because he hold if the doors are fully open, in that mevo'ot mefulashim, in those type of alleyway you cannot carry. Ki ata Rav Nachman amar panuya le'afraihu. When Rav Nachman came to the city of Na'arda, what did he do? He said to the people, those gates cannot be used. Move them. Right? Unlike Shmuel. Lema kasava Rav Nachman tzarich linol. Maybe you said that Rav Nachman hold that you have to lock those doors. He said, no, that's not a proof. Kivan deruuyot linol af al pi she'enan linalot. If you have the potential to lock that door, that's fine. But these gates that made out of this dust, you cannot lock them. So that's even you move them, you didn't. As long as you can close them in a normal fashion of doors, that's one thing. Otherwise, not. So now I'll bring you a story. Which means it was a mavoy that was made like the letter chet. You know that it's come and go in one. It's a similar to the mavoi we discussed at the beginning of the shiur, but in the sense of chet, which is, imagine that it's from here to here to here, like the Hebrew letter chet. Rami alei chumrei de Rav v'chumrei de Shmuel v'atzrichui u'dlatot. So they put the stringencies in both in Rav and Shmuel, and they requested to have doors. Chumrei de Rav de'amar to'ato k'mfulash. They said, according to Rav, that the same is mefulash. That what we said in mefulash, you have to have tzurat hapetach in one place and lech in the other. Ve'amar Rav halacha ketana kama. But Rav himself said that in mefulash, he need to have a tzurat hapetach in one place and lech in the others. He doesn't need a door. Remember we said that it's enough in mefulash, you hold, to have this and this, lechi, and tzurat hapetach. He doesn't request the door either way. כי שמואל דאמר הלכה כחנניה, ואמר שמואל תורתו כסתום, כרב דאמר תורתו כמפולש. So it means that when it's come to the curvy mavoi, that the alleyway that is curvy, we go stringent, like Rav said. So the people in the Arda, the sages of Ne'ada, make it stringencies in both. According to Rav, he held it like mefulash, and according to Shmuel, they recorded a door. So it means they requested both the tzurat hapetach and the doors in order to make it kosher. So it's all because it was curvy. So now they ask, we go both stringencies in both ways. והתניא לעולם הלכה כבית הלל, והרוצה לעשות כדברי בית שמאי עושה. Usually we go בהלכה according to בית הלל, that disagree with בית שמאי. And then, but they said something that contradicted. They said, but if someone wants to do כבית הלל, he can do it according to בית הלל. So they said, כדברי בית הלל עושה, בעיקול לבית שמאי, בעיקול לבית הלל רשע. מחום לבית שמאי הלל, אבל כתוב הכסיל בחושך עולה. So he said, look, if you want to do leniency in both, it's a wicked person, because you try to find leniency all the time. But if you go by the stringency in both parties, so that's what King Solomon said in the book of Ecclesiastic, that the ksil בחושך הולך. Which means that someone who's a fool walk in the darkness, because what are you doing? You go stringency all the times. He says Ela, how you should behave in this matter. Ike beit Shammai kekulehon ukechumreon. Ike beit Hillel kekulehon ukechumreon. The minute you have a beit Shammai, you follow the direction. You have to go by them. All the times they do a stringency and all the leniency, and versus Beit Hillel the same way. So we come to Pesach, and remember, Abe said that he wants to be Sephardi. So I told him, remember, that you cannot be Sephardi in one area and be Ashkenazi in the other area, right?
Yeah.
So the way that you go, that's the way it is, right? Yeah. So therefore, the big question is, how come the sages of Nahada make stringencies in both Rav and Shmuel? So they said Hagufa Kashya. That now we said that the Braita itself hard to understand. Why? Because you have internal contradiction between the two clauses. Amart lo olam halacha kebeit Hillel. You told me that we always go by halacha according to Beit Hillel, והדר אמרת רוצה לעשות כדברי בית שמאי עושה, and then you tell me that if someone wants to follow the way of Beit Shammai, he can do it. So they said, לא קשיא. כאן קודם בת קול, כאן לאחר בת קול. Remember the story we said that it was a voice from heaven. Later we said it also in the page 13b. The voice from heaven came. So the voice from heaven came and said that the halacha is according to Beit Hillel. So it means that this discussion was before it was ruled, and the other one it was after. So after if you tell me before it rules, it wasn't clear that we go by Beit Hillel. So anyone who wants to go by Beit Shammai can do it. But after the bat kol came in, then you have to go by Beit Hillel. That's one way. V'bai tema, it's another way to think, another interpretation. Ha veha, both part of the Braita, leachar bat kol, both of them come after bat kol, after the voice. But Rabbi Yoshua, the lo mashgach bebat kol. We just turned to page 7a. There's a famous GEMARA in Bava Metzia 59b, that it was a discussion over Tanuro Shel Achina, a famous discussion. And the bottom line, they said, we go by Rabbi Yeshua, that he said that it's not in heaven, it's not Bashamayim, it's according to the majority, and therefore he disregarded bat kol. First halacha is Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 365. Mavoi shenifratz mitzido, an alleyway that was breached from its side. It is prohibited to carry an alleyway that was breached from the side, or one was breached directly from the front and not from the corner. That's the Magen Avraham. If the breach is a 10 cubit wide, this rule applies only if people do not regularly cross through the breach. However, if people regularly cross through it, it is prohibited to carry it in an alleyway until the breach is required, even if the breach is only 4 handbreadths wide. That's the Rema. This ruling is according to the opinion of Rav Hanin bar Rava, either because the Talmud itself does not issue final ruling of the halacha and is lenient by the matter of the rabbi's law, that's what the Rosh said, or because Rav Huna, son of Rav Yeshua, was a later authority, agrees with him. That's what the Vilna Gaon said. Another halacha we learn about the shape or curve, Mavoy Akum, an L shape. Remember the L shape? Yeah. That the alleyway is treated like an alleyway that is open at both ends, and therefore it requires an opening in the form of a doorways at the point of the turn, as well as a side post or a crow's beam as its entrances. Alternatively, that's Shulchan Aruch Orach Chaim 364, it requires a side post or crow's beam at the point of turn, as well as the opening in it from the doorway and its entrance. This ruling according to opinion of Rav, because in his opinion it's opposed to Shmuel, is accepted as the ritual law. Now we discuss also dlatot neulot. We discuss the situation that it's a doors that locks. A public domain can be rendered fit for carrying only via doors that are locked at night. That's we said it like in Jerusalem. Mm-hmm. And we said that it is permitted to carry in an alleyway that it's open in 2 opposite sides into a public domain or into a Kərməlית if the entrance is in the form of a doorway, is constructed at one end, and a side post or crow's beam is placed on the other end. That's the opinion of Rav, accepted by the ritual law. And the last halacha of today, we said that the doors that are not fit to be locked. Some authorities, you remember the story of Nahada, so some say that the doors of a city that is considered public domain need to be locked as long as it is possible to lock the doors, as it in the case of considering they actually locked. That's the way we understand the Rav Nachman position, because otherwise if you don't go by the Rav Nachman position, so then you have issue with those doors if you don't lock them, and it's not a permanent, so how you treated those doors. So that's the reason why Shmuel didn't regard it, but Rav Nachman was strict that it's no use for those doors.
שיעור